Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolute thriller, one of the most high-stakes, edge-of-your-seat matches of the 2026 World Cup. We're talking about the quarterfinal clash between the reigning champions Argentina and a seriously resilient Switzerland. We're going to break down the tactics, the raw data, and those massive pivotal moments to see exactly how this 120-minute roller coaster actually played out.
70. Now, that's not just a random number. It had been over 70 long years since Switzerland last played in a World Cup quarterfinal. Just let that sink in for a second. Generations of fans had been waiting for this exact moment. They were literally 90 minutes away from pulling off a massive upset, shocking the globe, and carving their names into football history.
So, setting the stage here. On one side, you've got Argentina, rocking their iconic 2022 championship light blue and white. They're armed to the teeth with experience and, of course, the greatest artist the game has ever seen. But on the flip side, you've got the street-smart underdogs in red. And what made Switzerland so incredibly tough to break down was their consistency. Get this, 7 of their starting 11, including the entire backline, had started every single game of the tournament. Talk about a cohesive unit, right? Just a really wholesome story of a team clicking perfectly on the grandest stage.
Act 1, the underdog strikes. Going into this one, Switzerland was really feeling it. They thought they'd started incredibly well, shutting down those early attacks and really finding their footing. But then, well, they ran into the harsh reality of playing against an absolute maestro. 2. It's a crazy statistic, really. For the entire opening stretch, Lionel Messi hadn't even touched the ball. But the very first time he finally gets a touch, he instantly creates 2 wildly dangerous chances. The first was a corner that was just inches away from being perfect. And the second, well, that one was absolutely flawless.
That second corner from Messi was right on the money, finding the head of Alexis McAllister. And boom, with just incredible precision, McAllister heads it right in, giving Argentina this storming start. You know, after surviving some real scares earlier in the tournament, this was exactly the momentum shift Argentina desperately wanted. It really just goes to show how instantly lethal they can be if you give them even a fraction of an inch of space.
Now, what's fascinating here is that a lesser team would have probably just folded, right? Conceding that early to the reigning champs is devastating. But instead, Switzerland actually found their absolute best spell of the entire game. They took control of the possession, they started launching these probing attacks led by Brielle Embolo, and they completely shut down Argentina's space. They literally forced the Argentine squad to sit back and put Emi Martinez under some serious pressure, forcing him into making these really sharp, difficult saves. And guess what? That pressure paid off beautifully. Dan and Doy, who, by the way, commentators were rightly calling the absolute problem man for Argentina all game, pulled off a bit of magic. Through this incredibly sharp 1-2 passing sequence with Rodriguez, Ndoye completely breached the Argentine defense. He opens up his foot and delivers this clinical strike that honestly gave Emi Martinez zero chance. Just like that, bang, it's 1-1, injecting a massive, massive surge of belief right back into the Swiss squad.
Act 2, the breaking point.
At this point, the momentum had totally flipped. Switzerland had the belief, they had the ball, and they were pushing the world champions right to the brink. But as we know, football is a game of incredibly fine margins, and one single moment was about to flip this quarterfinal completely on its head. This was the devastating turning point. Switzerland's number 7, Brielle Embolo, who had been a huge part of their attacking pressure, gets shown a second yellow card and is sent off the pitch. In a flash, that aggressive Swiss game plan had to be completely tossed out the window.
Let's actually dig into why this happened, because it's a crucial detail. The booking wasn't for a reckless, dangerous tackle. It was for simulation. Basically, simulation is a deliberate attempt to deceive the referee by faking a foul or an injury. It is just a tragic way to go down a man. Now you've got this valiant Swiss team having to face relentless, crashing waves of attacks from the defending champions with only 10 guys out there on the field. What happened next was, well, it was an absolute siege. The Swiss defense was pinned right back into a corner. And look, when you're sitting back with 10 men, the huge danger is that you aren't putting any pressure on the ball, which is literally a fatal mistake when you have Lionel Messi prowling around out there. It was an outright onslaught. We're talking acrobatic, jaw-dropping saves from the Swiss keeper, Gregor Kobel, frantically pushing away sharp shots. We even saw desperate, last-ditch blocks from the Swiss backline just throwing their bodies on the line to keep the ball out of the net. Which brings us to the massive question that was hanging heavily over the entire stadium at the end of regulation. Could they actually survive? A grueling, agonizing 30 minutes of extra time was looming right ahead of them.
The sheer physical toll of defending against fresh Argentine legs, mixed with the heavy psychological weight of surviving wave after wave of attacks, it set the stage for the ultimate, brutal test of endurance.
Act 3, Championship Pedigree. Usually when an underdog is completely gassed and backed into a corner, it takes a moment of raw, unfiltered quality to finally break the deadlock. And that's exactly what the reigning champions brought to the table in extra time. You could literally hear the raw emotion from the commentators when Julian Alvarez stepped up exactly when it mattered most, striking a ball that looked like it was going up and over before taking this vicious, helpless dip right over the keeper. Amazingly, that was his first ever World Cup goal. It was just a magnificent strike, totally proving that Argentina has this incredible get-out clause built on pure individual brilliance. And this perfectly captures the relentless, multi-layered beast that is Argentina's offense. Look at how this sequence unfolds. It starts, like it almost always does, with Lionel Messi creating that initial threat. But here's the kicker. Even when the Swiss defense does literally everything right, even when Kobo makes a desperate, heroic save to stop Messi, the danger isn't over. Because a world-class striker like Julian Alvarez is standing right there, waiting to pounce on the rebound and finish the job. It's like a hydra. You can't just stop one player. You have to shut down the entire machine.
Following that heartbreaking goal, Switzerland was out of options. They had to throw absolute caution to the wind and just push bodies forward in pure desperation, which obviously left their defense totally exposed. The chances of the game ending 2-1 were incredibly low at that point. It was either going to be a miraculous 2-2 equalizer or a final dagger. Well, we got the dagger. Thiago Almada turns on the Jets, sprinting all the way down the pitch to set up Lautaro Martinez, who basically just slots in the simplest finish you'll ever see, to seal a 3-1 victory and officially end Switzerland's brave challenge.
So to really appreciate this match, you have to look at it end to end. It was a complete and utter roller coaster. We went from that immediate storming start by McAllister right into the shocking, clinical equalizer from Nandoy. Then we had the pivotal red card that totally derailed the Swiss momentum, leading straight into the extra-time heroics of Alvarez and Martinez. It's just an absolute masterclass in how matches at this elite level ebb and flow, and how one single simulation call can literally alter the entire course of a tournament.
For the Swiss, man, it's a deeply heartbreaking end to what was a truly wholesome and historic run. But for Argentina, their pursuit of greatness marches right on. They survive yet another massive scare, packing their bags to head back to Atlanta, which, ironically, is the exact same scene of their miraculous escape against Egypt earlier on, for a monumental semi-final clash against England.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this thought. We've seen them pushed right to the absolute brink by Egypt. We've seen them dragged into deep, treacherous waters by a 10-man Swiss squad. And yet, every single time, that championship pedigree shines through. So, as they march into the Final Four, who, if anyone, can possibly stop this relentless pursuit of greatness? Thanks for diving into the tactics and turning points with me today, and we'll see exactly how this unforgettable tournament unfolds next.